You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I'm Ethan Haristadoulou, and today I'm taking a look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and talking about what I would like and or expect to see from them coming into free agency. A lot has changed since the last time we've done one of these. Obviously, a massive $30 million jump in cap space for everybody going into the 2024 season is going to alter the way some things look. Honestly, the last handful of free agency discussions that I've had, not necessarily out the window, but things could definitely look a lot different with $30 million in more cap space going into the season. It's about $10 million more than a lot of people were anticipating. So with the Bucs, we're looking at about $45.5 million for them to play with. They got some big free agents to take a look at. So I'm going to talk re-signings. I've got 3 of them for you, and then I got some positional targets I have for you as well. So I invite you to comment down below and let's discuss. Starting with the re-signings first, and then we'll talk positional targets second. The first person I'm looking at here, and this one has got to be an obvious one, but I do know that some people think maybe it's a little too much money to keep. I personally think he is worth keeping around, and that's going to be safety Antoine Winfield Jr. Spotrac's AAV estimate is sitting at about $18.5 million per year and put him as the highest paid safety in the NFL. And while I'm not necessarily all in on the idea of making your specific player the highest paid player at any position, it always, it straps you money wise. It makes things a little bit more difficult for you. But every now and again, you look at a player and you go, you know what? This guy is worth breaking the market value. And I think Antoine Winfield has entered that discussion and deserves that consideration. With 122 tackles this past season, he also had 6 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries. He had 3 interceptions and 12 pass breakups to boot. This guy loaded up the stat sheet and was arguably the best player, not only on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, but potentially on the entire team. And when you are that good that you outmatch just about everybody else on the roster you're playing on, I think that is a good enough reason alone to consider bringing him back. Yes, the $18.5 million per year is a ton of money, but here's the deal. With what we just saw in a $30 million cap number jump from one year to the next, these TV deals that were signed just a few years ago by the NFL are really starting to kick in, and clearly going to kick in more than I think a lot of people anticipated. And I think there is a good chance that you see some guys get signed for some monster numbers that just a week ago you probably didn't expect. Who's to say the cap doesn't jump another $30 million next year, or maybe even another $40 million next year? There is a lot, and I'm talking billions, that's with the B, of money coming towards these teams and into the NFL yearly. There is a good chance that this cap number balloons over the next 3, 4, 5 years. We're signing an $18.5 million deal right now. Sounds like a lot, but 2 to 3 years down the road is going to be like pennies on the dollar with what some contracts are probably going to be approaching over the next few years. I would not be shocked if maybe they opt to franchise tag Antoine Winfield Jr., but the way I see it, one of the best, if not the best and most versatile safeties in the NFL, I think that the Buccaneers would be mistaken letting him walk. Second player I'm looking at here, and depending on who you talk to, some people feel like it's a no-brainer. Others think that, maybe you could find value elsewhere, or you did it once with one quarterback and maybe you could do it with another, and that's quarterback Baker Mayfield. I absolutely think the Buccaneers have found something with Mayfield, and I think they should stick with him. Sitting on a 64% completion percentage with just over 4,000 yards. He had 28 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Spotrac has him listed at an average annual value of something along the lines of about $27 million per year, which, again, judging by the way this cap just jumped here, that number could balloon slightly. I wouldn't be shocked if he's getting paid 30, maybe $35 million a year. Like, hell, Daniel Jones is getting paid $40 million per year by the New York Giants. You're going to tell me that Baker Mayfield isn't worth maybe $5 to $10 million less than that? I honestly think he's probably worth more than what Daniel Jones has done for New York, and that was a big mistake on their part, in my opinion. But I digress. I do think that what you have going with Mayfield is good going into the future. And yeah, it could have been ugly at some times, but I will say this. Baker has been through a lot the last few seasons. He's been moving around quite a bit. It's been a whirlwind. For him to land in Tampa Bay now and ultimately find stability and lead your team to, albeit a weak NFC South, I think it speaks a lot about the potential that you could have with Baker Mayfield under center for you. I don't really think it's worth just hitting the panic button and resetting again. Is this going to work out or not? Baker's always been a pretty damn good quarterback. Hell, prior to the Browns' playoff appearance this past season, Baker was the guy that brought them to the playoffs initially, and for whatever strange reason, just got completely written off for the season following because of an injury that he decided to play through because he loved Cleveland and wanted to, he felt even with his shoulder injury, he could help lead that team to the playoffs. In hindsight, kind of a mistake in my opinion because it set this precedence that, maybe he doesn't have it. And that 1 year of a playoff berth was, just a stroke of luck and situation, whatever you want to call it. I think Baker's a really good quarterback. He was a first-round pick for a reason. I think that the Browns made a massive mistake moving on from him and jumping to Deshaun Watson, and that's a whole other conversation. But I think the Bucs would be smart to not make that mistake, stick with him the next 2-3 years, see how things pan out. I think it's probably going to trend in the positive direction just considering the state of the NFC South right now. I could see another division title or two over the next 2 or 3 years with Baker leading the way. And then last, but certainly not least, and a guy that has he's made it very clear, I guess I should say, that he wants to be in Tampa Bay or nowhere at all, and that's going to be linebacker Lavonte David. Yes, he's 34 years old. I believe he's going to be turning 35 at some point during the season next year. Older guy, but he's still got the juice in the tank. 134 tackles this past season, 17 of those being for a loss. He still notched 4.5 sacks. He had 5 pass breakups, so he could still drop back in coverage. He had forced fumble as well. He said it himself. If it's not in Tampa Bay, it's retirement. I do think you could get him on a fairly team-friendly deal, maybe a little bit more than what he was making with that 4.5 last year. I think, honestly, giving him like a $6-7 million year deal for a year or two, or even, again, just a singular year, whatever it may be, makes a lot of sense. That cap jumped really high, giving him a few more extra million as a thank you for wanting to stick around and trying to keep a guy who, in my opinion, has been one of the best players on this Tampa Bay team since he stepped foot in that Tampa Bay locker room. If he wants to be around for another year with the possibility of Devin White now hitting free agency, because it seems like that's a little bit up in the air as to what happens there. I know that some people might look at Devin White as like the long-term answer at linebacker, but I know there are also some people who think maybe we should look elsewhere, start over. I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of getting David back. I'm assuming it's going to be a team-friendly deal. Like I said, $5 to $7 million for a 1 or 2 year deal makes a ton of sense. It allows you to go into the draft, grab a guy that you think could be your long-term answer, and he can work with David through his rookie, maybe even second season as well, before David ultimately opts to hang it up. I like the idea of keeping David around. On top of all the assets he brings physically and within the game, he's a locker room leader, a guy that you want to have there for your team, and I think if he wants to be there, you can make the money work and keep a guy like David around for at least another season or two. Now, beyond the free signings here, I'm going to focus on positional targets next, and we were just going on about the linebacking position. I do think in free agency, with the possibility that Devin White is going to be hitting that free agent market and probably going to get paid somewhere, I think it's going to be worth going in there. And in my scenario of you're prioritizing Baker Mayfield and Antoine Winfield Jr. over Devin White, going into free agency to find a guy that helps bridge the gap between Lavonte David being around for another year or two, someone who can be a legitimate starter alongside a rookie that I'm expecting them to go and potentially draft as well. I think getting a middle of the road type of guy. This doesn't have to be like the S tier linebackers that are going to potentially hit free agency, like the Patrick Queens of the world. No. But I do think that there are some guys that you can go after who would be solid options. And one person that I really, really like the idea of, and I think has been really solid, and because the linebacking room is so deep over there in Kansas City, going after someone like maybe Willie Gay Jr. might not be a bad idea. He's projected to have roughly about a $7 million per season price tag, give or take, something along the lines, and I do think that's a very doable number paired alongside a starting rookie. I know you have KJ Britt there as well, but a rookie if you go after one in the draft, and again, you're spending $5 to $7 million on Lavonte David. You're not blowing up the linebacking room as far as numbers are concerned with money. This, again, allows you to keep David, get a solid guy to start around them. You have KJ Britt, obviously young guy as well. Whether you're in on him or not as a long-term answer, I'll leave that up to you, but also going to be able to bring in a rookie as well. You have a really strong, solid linebacking room, at least for the next couple of years or so, and it's not as pressing of a need going forward. So I do like the idea of seeing them target a linebacker, but it doesn't have to be a top-end guy. Again, Willie Gay Jr. would be a phenomenal pickup there. In case he has so much talent in their linebacking room, he's a guy set to hit free agency that I wouldn't be shocked seeing taking offers come day one. Next position group I'm going to look at here, I'm going to say wide receiver, and I'll start off by saying that I do want to see Mike Evans stay in Tampa Bay. I think that he is a Tampa guy. When I think of Tampa Bay, one of the first people that comes to mind is Mike Evans. The guy is always racking up 1,000-yard seasons, touchdowns be damned. The guy is a playmaker, even at 30 years old. However, it kind of feels like age, contract, and we're already talking spending a decent amount of money here, re-signing guys, and on top of that, maybe some free agent pickups here or there. I do think that Evans staying in Tampa Bay is an unlikely scenario unless he's willing to take far less than what his market value is, and Spotrac has him listed pushing north of $20 million per year, and I know he's 30, but his production speaks for itself. So to be fair, he kind of deserves it based off what he's done. He hasn't shown a significant drop off in any sort of the imagination. So if he does walk, I think wide receiver is something worth looking at. Now, I'm not talking going to get T. Higgins or something like that. I think that's a little bit unrealistic just considering the situation. I'm assuming you're probably sticking with Chris Godwin being your number one wide receiver going forward. So you want a good guy that's going to complement him amongst the others that you have in the wide receiver room here. And I like a guy along the lines of something like maybe Gabe Davis and or Curtis Samuel. Davis gives you some size, 6'2", 225, bigger guy, can produce over the middle there. Or if you want someone a little bit smaller, a little bit shiftier, I know Chris Godwin's 6'1" or so, something like that. So he's not necessarily massive, but he's not little either. He's kind of in the middle there. But if you're looking for someone a little bit smaller with more blow the top off the defense type speed, you have a guy like Curtis Samuel. And both Davis and Samuel, you're looking at $11 to $13 million per year on a contract. That is nothing compared to the near 20-something million that you're going to have to dish out to keep Mike Evans around. So I think costing about $10 million per year or so less than Mike Evans helps open some things up that you can do with the rest of the roster. And so wide receiver, would not be shocked to see them maybe go after and bring in a guy, like I said, Gabe Davis, Curtis Samuel, one of those guys that's a solid quality option who could play number 2 to Chris Godwin's number 1. And then the last position that I have highlighted here, and I think this one is pretty necessary. I think a lot of people would agree with this one as well. I do think we need to find ourselves some, and by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not me, but I do think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need to find themselves looking at cornerback going into this free agency here. But I will say that I do think it would serve Tampa Bay well, just with the way the roster is currently constructed and the way we're kind of spending money here in this hypothetical scenario of mine, of chasing cornerback 1 in the draft and then going for depth during free agency. You allowed the 4th most passing yards this past season, so this is definitely something that needs to be addressed. And I do think you can address depth within the free agent market. You have guys like Levi Wallace, Jordan Lewis, maybe someone like Jeff Okudah, bit of a flyer, has had a bit of an up and down start to his career, but he's set to hit free agency as well. Again, I'm not looking for number 1s here. I'm looking for guys to fill out the cornerback room because it's clear there needs to be some depth. Or maybe even looking at a guy, familiar name, Sean Murphy-Bunting. Tennessee going through big turnover with their roster, new head coach, new regime, his status up in the air on whether he returns to Tennessee or not. If he hits the free agent market, I think him coming back into the Tampa Bay system would honestly serve the unit well. I mean, he had a career low 51% completion percentage his final season in Tampa Bay. He looked really good. It was just a matter of, we have a lot of talent here. We're going to have to let somebody go. Sean Murphy-Bunting didn't quite have a stellar season in Tennessee this past season. I think he was serviceable, and I do think if you're going after and bringing him back, familiar guy, knows your system already, it's an immediate upgrade, and bringing your secondary back to its kind of Super Bowl heyday unit. So it's not a bad idea. Am I sitting here hammering the table for it? No, but I do think it is something worth considering. So I do think that there are some quality guys you could chase after, be it familiar or unfamiliar faces within the cornerback market. And again, all these guys, they're probably going to cost you $10 million per year or less, which is not bad in the grand scheme of things. I feel like that number still sounds large, but with the way the salary cap is jumping these days, and honestly, it's what it's going to look like, which I wouldn't be shocked to see the 300 million mark crossed in the next 2 years at least, maybe 3 at most, but I wouldn't be shocked to even see 300 million in the next 2 seasons, by 2026. If they don't cross 300 million then, it's absolutely happening in the next 3. So it sounds like a lot now, but in the grand scheme of things down the road, it's really not, with the way this money is going to be changing over the next few years, because it's very clear that those TV deals are hitting, and they're hitting very well in the NFL. So if you're paying, somewhere within the range of $5 to $10 million for a depth guy at corner who you think is going to be solid. Sounds like a lot, but in reality, it's not. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Again, my thoughts, my opinions. I invite you all to do the same. But that is it for me. If you made it to the end, as always, I greatly appreciate it. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.